Sandoria. I remember booting up the game for the first time back in 2002 and being absolutely blown away by the graphics and the castle-esque atmosphere. This was my personal favorite starting city and the one I have used the most over the years. In this video, I will show you the tips and tricks I have learned over the years if, like me, you chose to be a proud knight of Sandoria. This is a part 2 of a 3-video series covering early game strategies to get started on the right foot in all 3 of the main nations. For sake of consistency, I will assume you have not watched my other guides in this series and might repeat some tips that apply also in this one. Little disclaimer, this guide is made for what is known as Final Fantasy XI Classic and is made on the WingsXI private server. These strategies might not apply if you're playing this on retail or on a other server. With that out of the way, let's get right into the video. First of all, let's cover the basics. First thing we will do is set up a few options to make our life easier. Step 1 will be to go into configs and lower the music and sound effects for the game, as the default volume is absolutely bonkers and will shatter your eardrums. Once that's done, we will have to set our inventory sort to automatic, as this will avoid us having to manually do it after every few kills. Once that's done, we will make our way to the tutorial NPC called Alone to start our journey. For Sandy, she is located right here in southern Sandoria, right next to the gate to West Ronfor. She will prompt us to talk to the guard next to her and get our Signet buff. Signet will generate a currency for all of the experience points you gain while under its effect. Rule of thumb, you always want to have Signet on throughout your adventures. You can spend this currency on gear, experience bonus rings, items like a Scroll of Warp or Re-Raise, and a lot more. Once that's done, we will talk back to Alone, which will then ask us to use the food she will provide to you. Talk to her again, and she will ask you to gain your first weapon skill. This will be done naturally while leveling in the outside areas around Sandoria. Before heading out though, we will do a few things to make sure we get the most out of our time in Ronfor. Depending on your starting race and city combo, you will be awarded a starter ring which provide excellent stats for free. If you started as an Elvan, you already possess the Sandorian ring. If you did not though, you can still obtain the ring for any of the factions for that matter by creating another character with the correct race-city combo. Human Galkas and Bastok will be awarded the Bastokian ring, while Mithras and Tarus in Winders will get the Windersian ring. On Wings, these rings are actually tradable, so you can make a mule and simply go to the Mog House and send the rings back to your main character. Because of this little trick, I am able to rock 2 of the starter rings, which will help a lot during the leveling process. This also works for starting weapons and other armor. For example, I started this character as a red mage, but for some reason that I really don't understand, red mages will start with an onion dagger. Daggers are very weak early on, and red mages have much better stats with their classic Final Fantasy weapon, the sword. Once you start, you essentially have no money and you can't buy anything, but I'm still able to send myself the onion sword I got from starting as a warrior on my mule, along with the rings. I am now able to be a level 1 red mage with a sword instead of a dagger, along with the 2 starter rings. Let's put on all of this wonderful gear and make our way back to the gate to West Ronfor. On the way there, we will stop at the NPC called Alivia at I-9 in order to trade in our adventurer coupon. This only gives you 50 gil and I usually just toss it, but since the NPC is right here on the way, we might as well grab the extra gil, as this will help us buy some low-level spells we will need soon enough. I also recommend setting your home point right here next to the tutorial NPC, as this is a prime location in case things go south. We are now finally ready to head out into the beautiful forest of West Ronfor. When we're out the gate, let's make our way to the right and go straight to the Fields of Valor book. These books are available in most outdoor areas and will feature some hunts for you to pick, awarding extra experience, some gil, and a currency called tabs, which you can then use on buffs. We will grab page 1 in the individual challenges and we'll make our way to the west side of the gate this time in the area. We will focus our first few levels on rabbits and only kill worms in order to complete the page we have just picked up from the book. Little words of wisdom here, the worms in this area are not all level 1, contrary to the mobs in front of the other starting cities. Make sure you use the check command to fight only the worms that are even match. If anything reads tough, they will absolutely destroy you, so just ignore them for the time being. Keep killing the level 1 worms while also killing some rabbits on the way, which should all be level 1. Once your page is finished and you are around level 3, we will make our way back to the book and grab a buff using your freshly acquired tabs. If you are a mage, grab refresh, and if you're a melee job, grab regen. If you can, grab page 1 again and we will make our way to our new camp, slightly south of our current position. This area is absolutely packed to the brim with rabbits and worms, so we will just kill everything in sight, focusing on worms if you got a new page. If not, focus your attention on rabbits as their drops are very valuable to net us some early gil. Repeat this process until you reach level 5. Now that you have reached level 5, it's time to make our way back to Sandoria. We will then want to go to Parvipon right here in southern Sandoria at E8. It will offer us 120 gil for every 3 rabbit hides we will provide him. This man is going to be our gil provider for the next few levels, so make sure you treat him nice and trade your hides to him. From there, because I started as a red mage, I will need to buy some scrolls. Our next stop will then be the magic shop in Port Sandoria. A lot of the early spells can be purchased there for quite cheap, but it might be worth comparing them to the auction house as some spells are ridiculously cheap there as well, like Paralyze, Blind, and a few others. It's a good idea also to stock up on future spells to avoid having to walk back and forth all the time. Speaking of, we will also collect a Marguerite from the auction house on our way, which we'll sell for very cheap on the auction house. We will then trade the flower to Q Mazzoli in northern Sandoria at F7. This will give us the ability to exit the mug house in any of the mug houses across the city, making it a great tool for faster travel. I have also opted here to make a quick stop at the armor shop in southern Sandoria to get a Luon shield. The shield itself is nothing special, but it will provide me some much needed shield skill ups during my leveling. Last stop before heading back out is the tutorial NPC. You should easily have acquired your first weapon skill by now, and she will prompt you to go check the auction house. We can then put all the crystals we acquired on the auction house and make our way back to the NPC. From there, talk to her until you get both your raising earring and your chariot band, a free ring that will grant a decent experience bonus. With all of our errands complete, let's finally move this time to the other gate at L10 to go into East Ronfor. We will be able to go to the Fields of Valor book to grab our buffs and page 3 this time, which will consist of hunting down some forest hares. We will then make our way slightly north until you see the hares and start hunting them down. Kill them until your page is complete. We will repeat this process every new game day to accumulate the precious tabs, gil, and experience. Once the page is over, we will move back right next to the gate to Sandoria, where you will see a small concentration of wild rabbits. We will solely focus our attention on these mobs as they are extremely easy to kill, have a very high drop rate on the hides, and can even drop 2 of them at a time. Their drop rate is like 4 times better than the ones in West Round 4, so we will be able to farm a high quantity of hides while leveling. The rabbits also repop extremely quickly and should respawn by the time you kill the last one in that little area. Once you get 1 or 2 more levels, you can also kill the orc that kind of hangs out in the area for a chance to get an orcish axe, a rare X item that you will need to complete the first mission in Sandoria. Repeat this process until you reach level 10. From there, let's make our way back into town to run a few more errands. Our first stop this time will be again the NPC to trade in our freshly skinned hides. Just like before, trade them 3 at a time to Parvipon until you have freed all of them from your inventory. This should have netted you a few thousand gills on top of some Sandorian fame. With your newly acquired money, prioritize buying spells if you are a mage from the shop in Port Sandoria and the auction house. If you're a melee job, focus on getting some new gear. Depending on your job, the gear in question might vary and most optimal gear might not be available in these Sandorian shops, mainly the scale armor set at level 10. Because our guild supplies is very low at this point, you could send the guild to your mule in Bastok we used earlier and access the shop in Bastok Markets, which sells the armor for quite cheap. You can also look on the auction house as some of the pieces are actually really cheap to start with, mainly the boots, the gloves, and the headpiece. Some quests also in Sandoria will offer great gear upgrades. As a red mage, I opted to complete the quest Esquire's Test in southern Sandoria. I bought a revival tree root for a few hundred gil on the auction house, then simply brought it to Balazil at F7 in exchange for a Spatha, which is a massive sword upgrade. I also opted to spend my hard-earned conquest points at the guard gate to obtain a royal footman's tunic, a very decent body piece for mage jobs. With our spells and gear now up to par, we will make our way to Gelsba Outpost, located in the northwest corner of West Ronfor. Make sure you grab your buffs from the book before heading out, as there are no books at the outpost itself, and if it's a new game day, you can also grab page 2 and kill some forest hares on the way to the orc's lair. From here, we will simply go on a good old orc rampage and kill everything in sight. They drop fire crystals which sells for a good amount of gil, and have a chance to drop some gear and scrolls that you can sell to NPCs for extra cash. Literally kill everything you see until you reach level 12. From here, the choice is really yours. You can continue to solo in the outpost until level 14 or so, then make your way to Lethane Plateau and continue soloing. You could decide to make your way to Valkyrim Dunes and join the party, as they start at level 12 on the Wings server anyway. If you want to make more gil, you could also swap your job to start the leveling process all over, collecting more crystals, hides, tabs, and experience in the process. The game revolves around leveling multiple jobs anyway, so it's a good idea to get a head start. I personally leveled 5 of the 6 standard jobs to 12 before I even went out and partied at all, which was 100% worth it in my opinion. I was able to buy everything I needed and more, and use the conquest points I had accumulated to get some extra goodies like the Royal Footman's gloves and a proper Empress ring for experience bonus. There are a multitude of quests you can also do that will offer some decent rewards, just like the one we did for the sword. One of them that comes to mind is the Wing Pendant quest, which is a quick fetch quest for a nice Rare X free neck piece. It would be impossible to cover all of them here, but I will link some of my favorites in the description of the video. If you do decide to make your way to the dunes, make sure to grab the outpost supplies from the guard gate to Ronfor and the one for Zulkheim if it is owned by Sandoria. Having access to warping directly to outpost is a huge advantage, especially at the early levels. Alternatively, you can set your home point in the dunes or in Salbina, as a lot of the times things don't go too well in the dunes and you will want to make sure you're able to fast travel if you do get a group. Even if your home point is set to Valkyrim Dunes, you will still be able to use your tabs you acquire to use repatriation, a warp back to your home nation regardless of your home point. Keep XPing until you reach level 18, where you will be able to get your support job after completing a small quest in Salbina. Last tip, Final Fantasy XI revolves around teamwork and helping your fellow player. For this reason, it's a really good idea to grab a Link Pearl for a Linkshell at the concierge right next to our tutorial NPC. Our Linkshell GoodMorningEveryone is always recruiting and is one, if not the largest Linkshell on the server, so there's always someone on there to help if needed, so don't hesitate to join us if you'd like. In conclusion, here are the big bullet points I want you to keep in mind when you start your journey over in Final Fantasy XI Classic. Number 1 is always have Signet on. This will buff your HP and MP recovered, and the currency you get for free is just too useful to pass on. Number 2 is always to focus on monsters that have valuable drops on the auction house or to NPCs. Number 3 is always to double check the auction house and the shops, as the prices can vary quite drastically. Number 4, make sure to grab your support job at 18. You should be able to get most of the drops you need from just leveling in the dunes, but the skull can be a little bit tricky. If you need help, you can do a server yell or simply ask your Linkshell for some assistance. Number 5, level multiple jobs to obtain more items to sell while leveling, and make sure you don't have a gimped support job. Lastly, a big note I forgot to mention actually during my Bastok video, make sure you keep all of the Beastman seals you have collected, as they will be extremely useful later on for some BCNMs, which are special encounters with some unique drops, like the Scroll of Utsusumi Ni, and a few others. That's it for my guide to getting started in Sandoria. This is just my tips and tricks I have discovered over the years while playing the game, along with some tricks I have learned while discussing the subject with some members of the community and my Linkshell. It would be literally impossible to cover everything in a single video, as there are a ton of information to cover between the large amount of quests, missions, camps, job gear combos, and etc. I hope this guide was still useful to provide you with some tools to get started on the right foot and get over that hump that can be the very first few levels in Vana'diel. If you enjoyed this guide, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have additional tips for new players, make sure to let us know in the comments. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and happy adventuring.